So a little bit of an interesting topic that has come up, and this is because I've seen Astacross video, so that's linked down in the description if you want to go see that one. But Cozmo basically posted on Twitter a little feedback thing, and I thought I'd give a little bit of a delve into it and see what my opinion would be of it, because I'm kind of curious to see what everyone is thinking about on Reddit. Now, I'm not going to read out Cozmo's posts entirely. I'm just literally going to show you here so you can read it. Pause the video if you want to read through it entirely. That is completely down to you. But just to kind of summarize it, he wants feedback to hand back to the dev team so they can do some small quality of life improvements on the game. We already know that a couple of things are on the way to come out with Lightfall and probably Season 20. But he's kind of just putting out the feelers to see if anybody else has anything that would be good to pass on to the dev team. Starting off with the very first comment, it is literally Raging Wolf saying, reformatting the buff and cooldown timers. Since Light 3.0 started, we have too many buffs overlapping each other, not counting raid or mission specific ones. I completely agree with this. I think it should be expanded to maybe 8. That would probably be a nice kind of way to see what's actually being buffed, because I don't think many builds actually overlap 8 buffs or cooldowns at any one time. Like, if you are, then your build is very complicated. This just seems to me like a really easy fix for Bungie to do. Like, I can't imagine it's going to be hard to code in another 4 lines where it will just show an extra buff and line up exactly as the original 4 does. But if they were to do this, I would encourage them to add in a setting so you can change it if you want it to have it as 4 or 8, because I can imagine there's going to be quite a few players that won't like this, because it's going to take up a lot more space on the screen and might distract you completely when you're playing the game, so it's completely understandable if you want to change it back to 4. So here's an incredibly long post from Jeff DeLeon on the Reddit post, but I'm just going to read out the quality of life section. Everything else is very good points, and if you want to read it, I'd recommend you check the Reddit post, but I'm just going to read this out. Something he does mention, which is a very big nuisance for me as well, is that if you're in a fire team with someone, you can't check the modifiers for a legend, master, or whatever event that you're going to take on. Yes, the fire team leader does normally feed it back to you with the types of champions you're going to be facing in the shields, but it would just be nice if you could click on it yourself and just have a look. It just really baffles me, because you can select planets while you're in a fire team, but obviously you can't launch anything because you're not the fire team leader. Why can't we do this for Nightfalls? It just doesn't make any sense for me. The second thing he mentions is a ping system, and I'm going to be skeptical on this one, because whilst I do see the ping system being a very big benefit for players who don't communicate with microphones, the really big counter side to this is that what if people can spam it? Because if you are in a fire team with 2 people that you've just randomly met and they're spamming the ping over and over again, I imagine this is going to become really annoying. But to counteract that, I suppose you could have a setting in the options menu where you could just disable all pings. So unless you actually need the pings to coordinate with other fire team members, you could just disable it if it's getting annoying. But something I'm going to touch on that Astacross says as well in terms of the ping system, it has to be something a bit more specific. I don't want just a random ping spot here and there for when you press a button. I want the pings to actually mean something. So for example, if you ping a red bar enemy, it will just come up with like a small enemy marker. If it's a mage, you'll have some kind of enhanced logo for it. And then if it's a boss one, you could have like a boss icon. So take the raid symbol, for example. Like something that is going to clearly distinguish what each ping means. Because if you're just having these random pings dotted everywhere, it's not going to really make any sense or have any benefit to anybody. Another thing he's mentioned is Fireteam shaders. And yes, I would love this. I think a lot of people would love this, because we're getting sick and tired of going through pages on pages of shaders. And literally, as he says it, these shaders appear first. That would be completely perfect. You could literally just start your favorite shader, it would move to the front of the queue, and that is where it will stay, so you can just quickly swap between your favorite shaders whenever you want. You can then also use a new one that you've just acquired to actually try it out and see how it looks, but then easily swap back to the previous shader. This just makes so much sense to me, and I really hope Bungie takes this one on board. Favorite thing for armor ornaments. So this I can understand. I'm not quite at the level where it's 2 pages yet, but let's say you've been grinding the Synth Strand on day 1 since it came out. You're going to have a lot of armor ornaments to actually go through, and sometimes you want to mix it up every now and again. Much like the shaders, it would just make sense if you could star your favorite ones and they would move to the front. And then if you actually do want to go digging for a new kind of style, you have pages and pages to look through. It's just that simple. The final thing I'm going to take from his post before I move on to somebody else's, Sparrow Transmog. I have said this in a previous video, I would love to see this so much. And exactly like what he said, I both love and hate Always on Time. The only reason I love it is because it's so quick. The reason I hate it is because I can't change how it looks, and there's no alternative that will keep up with the same speed. And much like what I said in the Sparrow Transmog video, I'll probably link it up here above with an eye, so check it out if you want to. I would personally love to see some kind of Sparrow crafting, and what I mean by this is you get an engine set, you can then change the wings, you can change the top speed. Basically, you modify the Sparrow to how you want to ride it. Let's say if you have a 160 engine in it, it's going to be really fast, but not be able to turn as much. But there, if you swap it down to a 150, you can then take tighter turns. On top of this, you could then whack any appearance you wanted onto that Sparrow because it will be a transmog system. That kind of approach just makes a lot more sense to me now that we have some kind of crafting systems in place. I don't know why Bungie doesn't look forward to actually implementing this kind of thing, but I'm going to move on because otherwise this post is going to keep me here forever. So this is actually going to be a 2-post section that I'm going to talk about, because Sunday Comic says an easier way to target a specific armor piece to drop would be nice. But then in the second comment, Kyle Sharetti, I'm hoping I'm saying that right, someone else suggested being able to focus exotic engrams at Xur, and I cannot be more here for it. I would be completely for being able to pick up an exotic engram instead of just getting a random exotic that you might not want. It would then be an exotic engram you have to carry around. So if you want to decrypt it into something random, you take it to Master Rahul. But then if you wanted to focus it into something, like let's say Xur has a list of items you can focus your exotic engrams into, you just take it to Xur and focus it into the exotic that you want. It would kind of bring Xur more in line with the current vendors as well, because let's face it, Shaxx does this, the Drifter does this, and Saint 14 does this with all their engrams. It just gives you more of an option rather than just relying completely on RNG to get something that you actually want. So I'm completely here for focusing exotic engrams. And as you can clearly see from the really bright comment, because it has the Eureka treatment, 305 username proxied actually says give Stasis acquisition the Ikora treatment. Now, what they mean by this isn't that they should give it to Ikora to actually look after. They mean you should be able to acquire the aspects and fragments much like you do with Void 3.0, Solar 3.0, and Arc 3.0. Because currently you have to go to LC and accept a quest, and then you can actually go and redeem one of them from her. It would just make a lot more sense, because Beyond Light is now 2 DLCs behind when Lightfall comes out. So just make it so you just go to LC, and you can either do the quest to actually get the piece that you need to get a fragment or an aspect, or you can just acquire them for a large amount of glimmer like you would with Ikora. Hell, even get rid of the quest thing for all I care. It's just making the acquisition of the entire Stasis tree that much easier. Sean Sully 220 has stated a very clear problem that we have right now. Please auto-dismantle blues after you hit the powerful cap for the season. Yes, 100%. There was apparently something they worked on in the previous TWAB where they basically said they were going to reduce the drop rate of blues because they were getting way too hectic. I'm going to be honest, I don't see that much of a difference, but being able to enable an option where I can just completely dismantle any blues I get would be amazing. I would even stretch this out and say some legendary weapons as well. Like if you could set it so if you have a deep sight roll, for example, it won't dismantle it. If it's a regular purple, it will. I would just like some kind of filter system where you could just decide which options you want to enable, and if you get the item, you'll just immediately dismantle it, and that's it. You won't see them ever again. Now, Wintermute has brought up a really interesting idea. Would love the ability to re-roll exotic gear. And I'm not going to say just leave it at exotic gear. I'd say expand this to legendary gear as well. But just to expand on what they actually mean, if you could just take your armor to someone like Rahul and then pay him a set amount of glimmer and a set amount of legendary shards, they would re-roll all your stats on the armor. So let's say, for example, you have a 68 armor piece and you want to have it re-rolled because you've got loads of intellect on it, but in reality you want a lot of discipline. You could then re-roll it and hopefully get a better stat distribution. Obviously the stat number would stay the same, but this would open up so many avenues in order to perfect build crafting, and on top of that, being able to perfect your stat distribution as well. Because I think we've all been there when we've had 1 or 2 points off a stat to actually get into the next tier, but there's nothing we can do about it because the armor we have is the best that we've got, and to get a better one is going to be really difficult to get, not to mention it's got to be a similar roll. This will just make things a lot simpler to get on with. But that's where I'm going to end this, because I'm seeing a lot of repeats and a lot of things where Bungie is straight up just going to say no because they've just added it recently into the game. And as you can clearly see, a lot of people have replied to this. There's over 4,700 replies in total, and I'm pretty sure I saw a couple when I was rolling through this, so even more has been added every single day. But thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I would love to hear what kind of changes you would like to see in Destiny, or what kind of changes you're excited for that have been announced already. But also remember to leave a like on the video, and I shall see you all in the next one.